The flatline screamed through the trauma bay at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. "We're losing him!" Dr. Harrison's voice cracked as he slammed his fist against the defibrillator. "This man has no medical records, no history, no emergency contacts. I don't even know his blood type." In the corner, temp nurse Rachel Torres watched the chaos unfold. Her hands trembled, not from fear, from recognition. The tattoo on the dying man's forearm, 3 stars arranged in a triangle. A motto in Latin she'd read 1,000 times under moonlight in another life. Per aspera ad astra. She knew that tattoo. She knew that face, even under the blood and bruises. And she knew exactly why no doctor in this hospital could save him. Because the man dying on that table wasn't supposed to exist. Rachel Torres had learned to become invisible. At 43 years old, she moved through the fluorescent corridors of Walter Reed like a ghost. Gray scrubs, hair pulled back tight. No jewelry except the simple silver band she'd worn for 20 years, the one that marked a marriage that existed only in classified files. "Torres, room 412 needs a fresh IV bag." On it. That was her life now. On it. "Yes, ma'am." Right away. Simple tasks. Invisible work. The kind of nursing that didn't require thinking, just doing. She preferred it that way. The October morning light filtered through the windows as Rachel made her rounds on the 4th floor. Walter Reed's general ward wasn't glamorous routine post-ops. Stable cases waiting for discharge. The occasional civilian contractor with a bad appendix. Nothing that required her real skills. Good, she thought. That's exactly what I need. Morning, Mrs. Patterson. Rachel smiled at the elderly woman in 408. "How's that hip feeling today?" "Better, dear. Though the food here could use some work." Mrs. Patterson winked. "You'd think with all our tax dollars, they could manage a decent pot roast." Rachel laughed, a genuine sound that surprised even her. "I'll put in a complaint to the Pentagon personally." She checked the chart, adjusted the morphine drip by exactly 0.2 milliliters, a tiny change the attending physician had overlooked, and moved on. That was Rachel's secret. She noticed things. Small things. The way a patient's breathing changed before they registered pain. The microscopic tremor in a hand that indicated a medication was hitting wrong. The subtle shift in skin tone that meant infection was setting in 12 hours before any blood test would catch it. 20 years of training in places that didn't appear on any map had given her that gift. Or that curse. In the break room, she poured herself coffee black. Bitter, the way she'd learned to drink it during long nights in forward operating bases across 3 continents. "You're always so quiet, Torres." Rachel looked up. Sarah Chen, one of the younger nurses, sat across from her with a breakfast burrito. 26, energetic, still believed she could save the world, one patient at a time. "Just tired." "You're always tired." Sarah tilted her head. "What's your story, anyway? Temp agency sent you over 3 months ago, and nobody knows anything about you." "That's the point," Rachel thought. "Not much to tell," she said. "Divorced, moved around a lot, needed a fresh start." All technically true. The divorce papers were real, filed in a Nevada courthouse that processed military separations. The moving was real, 17 countries in 20 years. The fresh start was real too, though the reasons behind it were buried in files that Sarah Chen would never have clearance to read. "Well, you're good," Sarah said. "Dr. Harrison was telling Dr. Morrison that you caught 3 medication errors last week that the system missed. That's impressive for a temp." Rachel shrugged. "Just paying attention." Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Checking in. "You okay?" She deleted it without responding. Commander Williams checked in every week, like clockwork, making sure she hadn't cracked, making sure she was still keeping her head down, making sure the woman who had once been Lieutenant Commander Rachel Torres, DEVGRU Combat Medic call sign Ghost, was staying dead. She finished her coffee and headed back to work. The afternoon passed in its usual rhythm. IV changes, medication rounds, comforting a young sergeant who'd lost both legs to an IED and was learning to navigate his new reality. Rachel held his hand while he cried. And she didn't tell him that she'd been the one to perform the emergency amputation in a helicopter over Kandahar 4 years ago, keeping him alive when everyone else had given up. Some things were better left unsaid. At 6:47 p.m., everything changed. The alarm came over the hospital intercom, a code that Rachel hadn't heard in civilian medicine. Trauma alert. Level 1. All available personnel to emergency bay. 3 immediately. Repeat. Level 1 trauma. Bay 3. Level 1 at Walter Reed meant military. Serious. Classified. Rachel's training kicked in before her conscious mind could stop it. She was moving down the corridor, her walk shifting from invisible temp nurse to something else entirely purposeful, efficient, predatory. No, she told herself. This isn't your world anymore. Stay back. Stay invisible. But her feet kept moving. She reached Bay 3 just as the ambulance doors burst open, and 2 men in black tactical gear pushed a stretcher through with an unconscious patient covered in blood. "GSW to the chest," one of them shouted. "Unknown caliber. Patient found at extraction point. No ID, no records in any system." Dr. Harrison, the chief trauma surgeon, sprinted to meet them. "What do you mean, no records? How is that possible?" "Sir, we're telling you this man doesn't exist. No fingerprints on file, no DNA match, no military record, nothing." Rachel pushed through the gathering crowd of medical staff, her heart pounding, and then she saw him. Even under the oxygen mask, even with his face half covered in dried blood, she knew. The jawline she'd traced with her fingers 100 times, the scar above his left eyebrow from a training accident in Virginia Beach, the tattoo on his forearm, their unit symbol, per aspera ad astra, through hardships to the stars. The man dying on the table was Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb, call sign, Reaper, her husband. Rachel's knees nearly buckled. "Marcus, here, now." They'd told her he was dead. 18 months ago, Commander Williams had shown up at her apartment in San Diego with the news. Classified operation. Something went wrong. No body recovered. She'd had to grieve in silence, couldn't even tell her own mother. Because officially, Marcus Webb had been dead for 5 years already. That was the deal they'd made when they joined DEVGRU. Their identities erased. Their marriage existing only in classified databases. 2 ghosts passing through the world, seeing each other only in brief windows between deployments. "If something happens to one of us," Marcus had said on their wedding night, "the other one just keeps going. That's the job." She'd kept going. Barely. And now here he was, bleeding out on a table, and no one knew who he was. No one could know. "Blood pressure's crashing," Dr. Harrison shouted. "We need to get this bullet out, but I can't do surgery without knowing his blood type, his allergies, his O negative." The words came out of Rachel's mouth before she could stop them. Every head in the room turned toward her. Dr. Harrison frowned. "What? He's O negative," Rachel repeated, her voice steadier now. "No known allergies. Previous surgeries. Appendectomy 2009. Rotator cuff repair 2015. He's got a titanium rod in his left femur from a car accident. Helicopter crash in Yemen," she didn't say. "I set that bone myself while mortar rounds fell around us." "How do you know this?" Harrison demanded. Rachel's mind raced. She couldn't tell the truth, but she couldn't let Marcus die while these doctors fumbled in the dark. I recognize the tattoo," she said. "I used to work at a VA clinic in Norfolk. He was a patient. I remember his file. It was a weak lie," and Harrison's eyes narrowed. But they were running out of time. "Fine. Get me O-neg. Now. And someone get this woman out of my trauma bay. She's not cleared for this case." "Wait." Rachel stepped forward. "The bullet, where is it lodged?" One of the tactical officers answered. "Upper right chest." We couldn't determine the caliber. Rachel's blood ran cold. Upper right chest on Marcus meant one thing. "It's near his subclavian artery," she said. "He has an unusual vascular structure, a branch that runs higher than normal. Standard extraction will nick it, and he'll bleed out in 90 seconds. Harrison stared at her. "How could you possibly know that?" Because she'd mapped every inch of his body in darkness and daylight. Because she'd memorized his medical file for exactly this scenario. Because she'd spent 20 years loving a man whose body she knew better than her own. The VA file was detailed, she said. Trust me, you need to approach from the lateral angle, not anterior. This is insane. Harrison turned to the security officers. Get her out of here. A hand grabbed Rachel's arm. She could have broken free 3 seconds. 2 moves. The guard would be on the floor. But that would blow everything. Her cover, her new life, everything she'd sacrificed. Marcus's heart monitor began screaming again. V-fib, a nurse shouted. We're losing him. Rachel watched them wheel the crash cart over. Watched Harrison grab the paddles. Watched them prepare to shock a heart that would never restart if they didn't fix the underlying bleed first. Let him go, a voice whispered in her head. You're supposed to be invisible. You're supposed to be dead. But then she saw his hand. The left one, hanging off the edge of the gurney. The hand that had held hers in a chapel in Las Vegas 20 years ago. The hand that had trembled when he'd slipped a ring on her finger. The same silver band she still wore. Clear. The shock jolted Marcus's body. No response. Again, clear. Nothing. Rachel made her choice. Stop! Her voice cut through the chaos like a command on a battlefield. You're killing him. She moved before anyone could react. 20 years of combat training compressed into a single moment. She was at the table, her hands on Marcus's chest, feeling for the bullet through the blood. Security, Harrison roared. Shut up and listen to me. Rachel's eyes locked with the surgeon's. The bullet is pressing against an anomalous arterial branch. Every time you shock him, you're pushing it deeper. He doesn't need paddles, he needs the bullet repositioned before it severs the artery completely. That's impossible to know without imaging. I can feel it. Rachel's fingers moved with precision she'd almost forgotten she possessed. I can feel exactly where it is. Give me a scalpel in 30 seconds, and I can save his life. Harrison laughed bitterly. You're a temp nurse from a staffing agency. You expect me to let you perform surgery? I expect you to let him die if you don't. The heart monitor wailed. Flatline. Rachel's eyes never left Harrison's. 30 seconds. That's all I need. And if I'm wrong, he's dead anyway. But if I'm right, the seconds stretched like hours. Then Harrison did something that would haunt his career forever. He handed her the scalpel. The scalpel felt like coming home. Rachel's hands moved with a precision she'd buried for 18 months. Not thinking, feeling. The way she'd been trained. The way she'd operated on countless bodies in dusty compounds and burning helicopters. And once, memorably, in the back of a moving truck while a sandstorm raged outside. What is she doing? Someone whispered. Playing God, Harrison muttered. But he didn't stop her. Rachel made a 2-centimeter incision, parallel to Marcus's collarbone. Her fingers found the bullet immediately lodged exactly where she'd known it would be, pressed against the anomalous branch of his subclavian artery. Forceps, she said. Now, a nurse, Sarah Chen, her face white with shock, placed them in Rachel's outstretched hand. The bullet is fragmentary, Rachel murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Military grade. Probably. 338 Lapua, designed to tumble on impact. Someone wanted him dead permanently. She worked the forceps around the fragment, feeling the artery pulse against her fingertips. One wrong millimeter, and Marcus would bleed out before they could do anything. Steady, she told herself. This is Marcus. This is the man who taught you to shoot a rifle, who held you after the nightmares, who promised you a house by the ocean when the missions were done. The fragment came loose with a wet sound. Suction, Rachel ordered, and get ready with a vascular clamp. There's going to be some bleeding, but it should be manageable. The blood came, bright arterial red, but Rachel had anticipated it. Her fingers found the tear in the arterial branch, small, barely a nick, and she applied pressure with one hand while guiding the clamp with the other. Someone get me 4-0 Proline suture, she said. And Dr. Harrison, you might want to step in for this part. The official record should show you performed the repair. Harrison stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Who are you? Someone who doesn't exist, Rachel said quietly. Just like him. The repair took 4 minutes. 4 minutes of Harrison's hands following Rachel's whispered instructions. 4 minutes of the nursing staff watching in stunned silence as a temp nurse essentially performed surgery by proxy. When it was done, Marcus's heart monitor began beeping steadily again. "Sinus rhythm," a tech announced. Wonder in his voice. "Strong pulse. BP stabilizing." Rachel let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Her scrubs were soaked with blood, his blood, and her hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. She'd saved him, and in doing so, she'd destroyed everything she'd built for the past 18 months. "I want everyone in this room to listen carefully," a new voice said from the doorway. Rachel turned. Commander Williams stood there, flanked by 2 men in suits who had federal agency written all over them. "This patient is under classification protocol Delta 7, Williams continued. "Everything that happened here tonight is classified. You did not see this patient. You did not participate in this surgery. And you," his eyes found Rachel, "you and I need to have a very long conversation." Rachel nodded slowly. She'd known this moment was coming from the second she picked up that scalpel. "After I know he's stable," she said. "I'm not leaving him until I know he's going to make it." Williams's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he would argue. Then he nodded. 2 hours. Then we talk. The room emptied slowly. Medical staff were shuffled out, signing NDAs thrust into their hands. Evidence was collected. The official record would show that John Doe had been treated and transferred to another facility. Only Rachel remained, sitting in a chair beside Marcus's bed, watching his chest rise and fall. She'd spent 18 months believing he was dead. Now she had to figure out why he wasn't, and why someone was trying so hard to make sure he would be. At 3:47 a.m., Marcus Webb opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Rachel's face, illuminated by the soft glow of the monitors. For a moment, neither of them spoke, just looked at each other the way they had 1,000 times before across crowded rooms, through night vision goggles, in the precious moments between missions when words seemed unnecessary. "Ghost," he whispered. His voice was raw, barely audible. "Reaper." Rachel's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "You were dead. So were you." A ghost of a smile crossed his cracked lips. "Guess we both lied." She wanted to hit him. She wanted to kiss him. She wanted to scream at him for putting her through 18 months of grief so profound she'd considered eating her service weapon more than once. Instead, she did what she'd been trained to do. She compartmentalized. "What happened?" she asked. "Who shot you?" Marcus's eyes darkened. "You shouldn't be here, Rach. If they know you saved me, they already know. Williams is outside." She leaned closer. "Tell me what happened. I've got 2 hours before they start asking questions I won't be able to answer." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, Operation Nightfall. 18 months ago. Someone on our team was compromised. Rachel's blood went cold. Compromised how? Selling information, routes, safe houses, target packages. Marcus coughed, wincing at the pain. 3 teams got wiped out in 6 months because someone was feeding intel to the enemy. Command decided to fake my death and send me dark to find the mole. "You've been hunting a traitor for 18 months? "I've been running from one." Marcus's hand found hers, weak but determined. "I found him, Rachel. I found the mole. But before I could bring the evidence home, someone sent a kill team after me." Marcus's eyes met hers, and what she saw there made her stomach drop. Captain Reynolds. The name hit her like a physical blow. Captain Thomas Reynolds, their former commanding officer, the man who had recruited them both into DEVGRU, the man who had officiated their secret wedding, the man who had personally informed her of Marcus's death. "That's impossible," Rachel whispered. "I thought so too, until I traced the leak back to his personal communication channels. Until I found bank accounts in the Caymans with deposits that matched the timing of every blown operation." Marcus's grip on her hand tightened. "He's been selling us out for 3 years, Rachel. Every mission we've run, every team we've lost, it's all been him." The room seemed to tilt. Rachel had trusted Reynolds with her life. with Marcus's life, with secrets that could destroy nations, and he'd been a traitor the entire time. The kill team, she said slowly. If Reynolds sent it, that means he knows I'm alive. And now that you've surfaced to save me, he knows you're alive too. Marcus's eyes were filled with something Rachel had rarely seen there. Fear, not for himself, for her. You need to run, Rachel. Get out of the country. I have contacts in. I'm not leaving you. This isn't a negotiation. You're right, it's not. Rachel's jaw set in a way Marcus knew all too well. Reynolds took 18 months of my life. He made me grieve you. He made me believe I was alone. She stood up, something dangerous kindling in her eyes. He doesn't get to win. The door opened. Commander Williams entered, his face carefully neutral. Time's up, he said. We need to talk. Rachel looked at Marcus one last time. I'll be back. Rachel, that's a promise, Reaper. And I don't break promises. She followed Williams out of the room, her mind already working. Reynolds had the resources of Special Operations Command behind him. He had intelligence assets, kill teams, the ability to make people disappear. But Rachel had something he'd never counted on. She had been dead for 18 months, and dead women have nothing left to lose. You should have stayed dead. Commander Williams's office was a windowless bunker 2 floors below Walter Reed's public areas. Rachel sat across from him, still in her blood-stained scrubs, feeling oddly calm for someone whose entire life had just imploded. I didn't have that luxury, she said. Not when I recognized him. Williams sighed heavily. He was 63, silver-haired, with the tired eyes of a man who'd seen too many operations go wrong. He'd been Rachel's handler for the past 18 months, the only person who knew where she was and what she'd been. Reynolds is going to come for you, Williams said. The second he learns what happened tonight, and he will learn. Rachel, he has sources everywhere. He's going to send everything he has. Let him. Williams leaned forward. This isn't a movie. You can't just go Rambo on a decorated special operations captain with unlimited resources. I'm not planning to go Rambo. Rachel pulled out a piece of paper, a page she'd taken from Marcus's belongings before they'd been confiscated. I'm planning to go surgical. Williams took the paper. His eyebrows rose. Is this what I think it is? Marcus spent 18 months building a case. Bank accounts, communication intercepts, photographic evidence. Rachel smiled grimly. Reynolds thought he destroyed everything when he ordered the kill team, but Marcus made copies. Digital copies, backed up to a server in Switzerland. How do we access them? That's the problem. Rachel stood, pacing the small office. The server requires biometric authentication, Marcus's retinal scan, and a physical key that he hid somewhere before the attack. Do you know where? Rachel thought about it. 18 months ago, they'd had a place, a safe house outside of Norfolk that only the two of them knew about, a backup plan for exactly this kind of scenario. If everything goes wrong, Marcus had told her once, go to the lighthouse. I'll leave what you need. I have an idea, she said, but I'll need resources, transportation, weapons. Williams shook his head slowly. I can't authorize a black operation against an active special operations commander. The blowback would. Then don't authorize it. Rachel met his eyes. Just don't stop me. A long silence. Then Williams reached into his desk and pulled out a keyring. Motor pool. Bay C. There's a black Suburban that isn't officially assigned to anyone. There's also a weapons locker in the back that may or may not be properly inventoried. Rachel took the keys. And Marcus? He'll be transferred to a secure medical facility within the hour. Somewhere even Reynolds won't be able to find him. Williams paused. I hope you know what you're doing, Ghost. So do I, sir. She was halfway to the door when Williams spoke again. Rachel. She turned. Reynolds isn't just dirty. The intel we've gathered suggests he's planning something big. Something that's supposed to happen in the next 48 hours. Williams's face was grim. If you don't stop him, I'll stop him. Be sure that you do. A lot of lives depend on it. Rachel nodded once and slipped out the door. The drive to Norfolk took 4 hours. Rachel pushed the Suburban hard, watching her mirrors for tails taking random exits and doubling back until she was certain she was clean. The weapons locker in the back held a Sig Sauer P-226, a tactical knife, and enough ammunition to start a small war. She hoped she wouldn't need most of it. The lighthouse was exactly as she remembered it. A small structure on a private stretch of beach, abandoned since the 1970s, restored just enough to be habitable. She and Marcus had bought it through a maze of shell companies 8 years ago. Their retirement plan. Their someday. Someday never came, she thought as she picked the lock. Inside, everything was covered in dust. But someone had been here recently. She could see it in the disturbance patterns. The single set of footprints leading to the old fireplace. Rachel knelt and felt along the brickwork. 3rd row from the bottom, 4th brick from the left. The brick came loose with a grinding sound. Behind it was a small metal box. Inside the box was a USB drive and a note in Marcus's handwriting. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead, or close to it. The drive contains everything you need to bring Reynolds down. But there's something else you need to know. Operation Nightfall wasn't just about hunting a mole. It was about stopping a coup. Reynolds has been building a network for years. Assets in special operations, the intelligence community, even Congress. They call themselves the Foundation. Their goal is to destabilize American military operations overseas so thoroughly that the government has no choice but to privatize. In 48 hours, they're going to assassinate 3 generals at the NATO summit in Brussels, and they're going to make it look like a foreign attack. The resulting chaos will give Reynolds and his allies exactly what they want. Unlimited military contracts worth billions. I know you, Rachel. I know you'll want to take Reynolds down yourself. But this is bigger than him, bigger than us. Get the evidence to someone you can trust. Someone with the power to stop this before it starts. I love you. I've loved you since the day you beat me in hand-to-hand at Coronado and didn't even have the decency to let me win. Per aspera ad astra. Marcus. Rachel read the letter 3 times. Then she made a phone call. Dr. Harrison, she said when he answered. This is the temp nurse who saved your patient tonight. I need your help. 29 hours later, Captain Thomas Reynolds sat in his office at Special Operations Command Headquarters, watching the news reports from Brussels begin to roll in. The NATO summit had begun that morning. 3 generals were giving a joint press conference at this very moment, completely unaware that in 7 hours, a team of assassins posing as Belgian security forces would... His phone rang. Sir, we have a problem. His aide's voice was strained. Someone's leaked classified documents to the Washington Post, the New York Times, and Reuters. Simultaneously, Reynolds's blood ran cold. What kind of documents? Everything, sir. Bank accounts, communication logs, the entire Foundation network. They're running it all tonight. For a moment, Reynolds couldn't breathe. Then, slowly, he turned to his computer and pulled up the Post's website. The headline filled the screen. Pentagon insider reveals massive corruption scheme. Special operations captain, allegedly behind billion-dollar conspiracy involving military contractors. Reynolds's hands began to shake as he scrolled through the article. Everything was there. Every account, every code word, every secret meeting. And at the bottom, a single quote from an anonymous source. Per aspera ad astra. Through hardships to the stars. Some of us still believe in what that means. He knew that phrase. He designed that unit's emblem himself. The phone rang again. He didn't answer. Behind him, his office door opened. Captain Reynolds. He turned to find 6 FBI agents in tactical gear, led by a woman he didn't recognize, gray-haired, professional, with a badge that identified her as the deputy director. Captain Thomas Reynolds, she said calmly. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, espionage, and treason against the United States. Please place your hands behind your back. Reynolds's eyes darted to the window. 7 floors up. No way out. This isn't possible, he thought wildly. My network is too deep. My connections are too strong. No one could have. And then he saw her, standing in the doorway behind the FBI agents. Gray scrubs, hair pulled back, a simple silver band on her finger. Rachel Torres, the ghost he'd buried 18 months ago. You, he breathed. Me. Rachel stepped forward, her eyes burning with something cold and final. Did you really think killing Marcus would solve your problem, sir? Did you really think we don't prepare for scenarios like this? You were dead. Both of you. Ghosts have a way of coming back. Rachel watched as the agents moved forward with handcuffs. The press conference in Brussels has been cancelled, by the way. Your assassin team was intercepted 3 hours ago. And your Foundation network? Every single member is being arrested as we speak. Simultaneously. Across 14 time zones. Reynolds's legs buckled. 2 agents caught him, forcing his arms behind his back. This isn't over, he hissed. You have no idea how deep this goes. The people I work for are finished. Rachel's voice was quiet now, almost gentle. That's what happens when you underestimate people, sir. You trained us to be invisible, to survive anything, to complete our missions no matter the cost. She leaned close. You should have remembered that before you tried to kill the only family I have left. The agents led Reynolds away. He was still shouting threats, denials, promises of revenge that would never come to pass. Rachel didn't watch him go. Instead, she walked down the corridor to the elevator, rode it to the lobby, and stepped out into the Washington evening. The air was crisp and clean, the kind of autumn night that made everything feel possible. Her phone buzzed. A text from Commander Williams. He's awake. Stable. Asking for you. Rachel smiled, the first real smile in 18 months. On my way. 3 months later. The lighthouse looked different in winter. Rachel stood at the window, watching the Atlantic waves crash against the shore. The restoration was almost complete now. New windows, reinforced walls, a heating system that actually worked. Not bad for 2 people who were supposed to be dead. Behind her, the door opened. The contractor says the dock will be finished by spring. Marcus walked slowly, still favoring his right side, but stronger every day. We'll be able to moor the boat right here. The boat we don't have yet? The boat we're going to buy. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. I was thinking something classic. Wooden hull, maybe 28 feet. Expensive. We have back pay from 18 months of being dead. Turns out the Navy owes us a small fortune. Rachel laughed. It still surprised her sometimes, the ability to laugh, to relax, to simply exist without waiting for the next mission, the next crisis, the next bullet with her name on it. Williams called, she said. The trials have started. Reynolds is facing life without parole, along with 37 other members of the Foundation. The 3 generals he planned to assassinate sent a joint letter of commendation. They want to give us medals. What did you tell him? That dead people can't accept medals. But we appreciate the thought. Marcus turned her to face him. He looked better than he had in years, rested, healed, the constant tension finally gone from his shoulders. But his eyes were serious. Are you happy, Rachel? She thought about it. Really thought. 18 months ago, she'd been drowning in grief and purposelessness. She'd taken a job as a temp nurse just to have somewhere to be, something to do, a reason to keep moving through days that felt empty and endless. Now she had the lighthouse. She had Marcus. She had the knowledge that they'd stopped something terrible, saved lives that would never know how close they'd come to tragedy. And she had time. For the first time in 20 years, she had time that belonged to her. I'm getting there, she said. Ask me again in a year. I'll ask you every day if I have to. That's a lot of asking. I've got nothing but time. He kissed her forehead. We both do. Later that evening, they sat on the rebuilt porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the lighthouse beams sweep across the dark water. You know, Marcus said, when I was lying in that trauma bay, bleeding out, I thought I was done. I thought that was how it ended, no fanfare, no goodbye, just fading out. But you didn't, because of you. He took her hand. You came back. Even when it meant destroying the life you'd built. Even when it meant putting yourself in danger. You came back. You would have done the same, in a heartbeat. He was quiet for a moment. I spent 18 months hunting a traitor, Rachel. Do you know what kept me going? What made me keep pushing, even when it seemed impossible? She shook her head. The thought of you. The thought that somewhere out there, you were living your life. Safe. Free. His voice cracked slightly. I couldn't die without knowing you were okay. Rachel felt the tears she'd been holding back finally spill over. Not from sadness, from something deeper. Something like healing. We're okay now, she whispered. Yeah. Marcus smiled, and for the first time in years, it reached his eyes. I think we really are. The lighthouse beam swept over them, a rhythm as old as the ocean itself, guiding ships home, warning them away from danger, doing what lighthouses have always done, standing strong against the darkness, showing the way forward. Sometimes the people who save us aren't the ones with the most impressive titles or the loudest voices. They're the quiet ones, the invisible ones, the ones who've learned to fade into the background because the spotlight was never their purpose. Rachel Torres spent her life being a ghost, a shadow in service of something greater than herself. She sacrificed identity, recognition, even the comfort of being known by the people she loved. But when the moment came when the man she'd thought she'd lost forever lay dying on a cold metal table, she made a choice. She chose to be seen. And in being seen, she saved not just one life, but countless others. Not through violence or revenge, but through the same thing that had carried her through 20 years of impossible missions. Love. The tattoo on Marcus's arm said it best. Per aspera ad astra. Through hardships to the stars. We all face hardships, loss, betrayal, moments when the darkness seems absolute. But the stars are always there, waiting, guiding us home. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember that even in our darkest moments, love can light the way forward. And if you want more stories like this, well, you know what to do.